I have been working in retail since I was 14, and I always walk around with some sort of horror paraphernalia on my person, whether on a shirt, a hat, or having my own car decorated. And I always get asked where to start with horror films if you're a beginner. Since this is the best fucking time of year, I felt now was a good time as any to talk about a series of horror films for beginners. I deal with a ton of college students because I live in a college city, and I get asked this so much. So let's form a beginner's guide to horror newcomers. I could do what most people on this platform do and name like the 50 most obvious films, but I'm not doing that today. One problem that I think repels people off of the genre is that they are told to watch something that you should not make your first horror film, and it puts them off forever. And my goal with this video is to show people how fun horror films can be. I'm dividing this video into sections, so hop around if you're looking for something in particular. Let's go! The obvious answers. Let me get the most basic answers out of the way right now so I can sound like every other horror channel I've seen over the years, and then I can have some fun with it. Halloween. Duh. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Dracula from 1931, Psycho, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Alien, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Poltergeist for the ghost fanatics, John Carpenter's The Thing, bring a barf bag for this one, The Shining, Scream, Saw, all of Jordan Peele's work. Those are all classics for a reason because they are amazing films. And even though I want to review all of those films someday, and may even review a few this month, I don't want to spend a bunch of time on them right now. They've been talked about to death on this platform. They're obvious answers, but you can never go wrong with any of those selections. They are all masterpieces for a reason. I know I left a ton out, so don't yell at me, where's The Exorcist? But that's just a basic start for people. I am not going to do full reviews of any of these films, just briefly talk about them to give you an idea about them. Films that show you that horror is fun. I think one thing most people forget to do with horror newbies is to show them why horror films are supposed to be fun. Like ones with light sparkles of horror, but nothing too overwhelming. Like The Monster Squad, for instance. That's a great example. Let's also talk about films like Creepshow, which I reviewed last year. It is an anthology horror film with 5 short stories, all written by Stephen King and directed by George Romero, the zombie legend. There is some unsettling stuff with this movie, but none of it is overwhelming, and the movie is hilarious in so many ways. Not just to sickos like me, but just in basic comedic ways. It knows what it is and wants you to smile. The fourth story, The Crate, in my opinion, is the only true horror one you may want to watch with your eyes covered at points with fright. But this is what shows you how fun this genre is. Cabin in the Woods is another one. It takes all of the cliches we've seen in so many horror films and makes a mockery out of all of it in the best way. It wants to tell you that even though the stuff is scary, it's okay to laugh at it, and even tells you why it's okay to laugh without insulting your intelligence. It's another good one. Evil Dead 2. This is one of, if not my favorite horror film ever, and is also one of, if not my favorite comedy ever. When you have a segment of the movie where a guy chops his own hand off, then the hand runs around and flips off the main character, then we also see the main character being flinged dozens of feet in a comedic way, it lowers your guard enough and allows you to have fun while you are watching it. I probably recommend this one the most just because I think it's a masterpiece. It was directed by Sam Raimi, so I can't recommend this one enough. Willy's Wonderland. I could easily put Five Nights at Freddy's here, but screw that. This is a much better film. If you want to see Nicolas Cage kick a bunch of ass on mascots, but also stop mid-fight so he can have his work break and level up on a paintball machine and a great pop can, you need to see this movie right now. It is really bad, but in a good bad kind of way. Cage does not speak one line in the film, and that adds to the humor when you see him beating the shit out of these robotic mascots. I love this bad movie so much. Choose your decade. One answer I always respond to when I'm asked about horror films is what decade are you looking for? Or what genre? Well, let me name films from each decade starting with the 1930s. The Frankenstein trilogy from the 1930s is a great series to start with. We have a new one coming out soon anyway, so no better time. It is one of the most famous stories ever told, and everyone knows about it in some kind of way. Even the people who annoy me by calling the monster Frankenstein know what it is. But I recommend all 3. Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and Son of Frankenstein. Frankenstein and Bride are basically one movie. They bring in elements in both films from the book, and combined, the runtime for both is less than 2.5 hours. So you can watch these two masterpieces in the same amount of time it takes you to watch one modern movie. The themes of man playing God and the consequences with that, and the black and white photography, are just one of the 10 billion things that make these movies great. The third film, Son of Frankenstein, is sort of the redheaded stepchild of the series, but Bela Lugosi does such a score, and the mind games being played by the three main characters make it just as great as the other two, in my opinion. The Invisible Man. The things that make this movie so amazing is the way that they use effects to make him invisible. I still don't know how they did some of the things they do in the film, and it is almost 100 years old. Claude Rains is the reason to watch this. His deep and sinister voice lures you in, and it will not let go. Even though he is the villain, we spend most of the with him and are either curious what he's going to do next, or laugh when he does hilarious shit like this.
Here we go gathering nuts in May, nuts in May, nuts in May. Here we go gathering nuts in May on a cold and frosty morning. Whoops!
You owe it to yourself to see this movie. M from 1931 isn't necessarily a horror film in the gothic or boo kind of sense, but is a frightening realistic story about a killer who kidnaps young girls and murders them. The way the town reacts to this and the vigilante justice, not to mention Peter Lorre's performance, is amazing. Give this film both powerful drama and an amount of tension and some horror. There is a mob court scene and it is some of the best acting from the early sound era. Check this one out too. 1940s. This is the decade where we saw the rise of Vincent Price and Lon Chaney Jr. So let's start with the obvious Wolfman. I don't think I need to describe this one. It's a classic story of a good man turning into a beast. But it is elevated thanks to an amazing performance by Lon Chaney Jr. Dragonwyck from 1946 is a great choice for a Vincent Price film of this decade. Most people would say The Invisible Man Returns, and that is a great choice. But I want to talk about something less obvious, so I'm going with Dragonwyck, which is not a traditional horror film, but it is worth your time to see the events unfold between this farm insane Vincent Price. There is enough spooky moments in it that make it a suspenseful horror film for that time frame. Return of the Vampire with Bela Lugosi is probably my favorite horror film from this decade. It may have more fog in it than I have ever seen in my life. But if you want to see the original Count don his cape once again in a role where he is not Dracula, but also has a werewolf in it and a bunch of other fun stuff, watch this movie and just admire Lugosi's voice and eyes. 1950s. Mostly alien movies made, so I'll just say House on Haunted Hill is the best, which is another Vincent Price joint. Also check out The Fly, The Blob, Plan 9 from Outer Space, and obviously Creature from the Black Lagoon, which I reviewed last year on this channel. There are so many killer alien and monster movies in this decade, it is hard to just give a full dissertation about them. Oh, please check out The Giant Claw as well. It is one of the best bad movies ever made. 1960s. I already mentioned Psycho and Night of the Living Dead, so let me throw out Village of the Damned, Repulsion, and The Haunting. I'm only doing quick mentions of these films because I don't want this video to be an hour long, and I have 31 horror films to review this month, so I have to keep it rolling for my own sanity. The 60s were a great decade with stuff like the Copping Joe trilogy and Rosemary's Baby, but the two I mentioned are juggernauts that I can't ignore. I want to review and probably will review more 60 horror films this month, so stay tuned for that. 1970s. Now we're really cooking. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Exorcist, Dawn of the Dead, iconic. But let me mention things like Sisters by Brian De Palma, a massively overlooked film by him, with a great performance by Margot Kidder, that has such great escalating tension in it. I can't forget David Lynch's first film, Eraserhead, which I reviewed earlier this year after Lynch's passing. Suspiria is another one I want to mention, if you want to get introduced to Giallo films. When a Stranger Calls from 1979 is another great choice. The Killer is Inside the House. Last House on the Left is also worth a mention, if you can handle some dark subject material. And I can't forget the best film of the 1970s. It's Alive by Larry Cohen, and its wonderful sequel, It Lives Again. Great shit you need to see. 1980s. It would be so easy for me to name the mascot horror from this decade, but nah. I may do that in another video. I'm not going to do that here. Let's talk about spookies instead. A movie so bad but great that two stories are happening at the same time that have no relation to each other. One group is stuck in a house, and the villain, I'm using a lot of air quotes with that, is sitting around basically holding a goblet the whole film. But the monsters are what make this film so great. There's mud people, a Spider Woman thing, and so much other fun stuff. This movie is so fucking great because it's bad. I have to mention The Lost Boys, maybe my favorite vampire movie ever. Kiefer Sutherland as David is iconic, legendary, and it is so sexy, and I am a straight male saying that. And I'm seeing it on the big screen for the first time in my life this weekend. I am so fucking excited, I can't wait. If you want a movie that is as fun as Goonies is with the kids hunting vampires, check out this masterpiece right now. Silver Bullet, another Stephen King story, and one of his most underrated in my opinion. This is a werewolf movie, and it isn't as good as its contemporaries of that time, such as The Howling or American Werewolf in London, but it has a charm to it that I can't get enough of, and it is goddamn hilarious. It's basically a comedy. Remember, I'm trying to make this video for horror newbies, not masochists, so I am choosing to play it light. I could go much darker, but not in a beginner's guide. Which leads me to John Carpenter's The Fog. I think this movie is a masterpiece that everyone looks at completely wrong. The opening scene of the movie is a bunch of kids sitting around a campfire listening to a ghost story. Let that set up the way you approach the film. Remember when you were in Scouts as a child, or went on a camping trip with your friends, and approach it like a campfire ghost story. It isn't as iconic as Halloween, but it has maybe Carpenter's best music in my opinion. And this film is all about the mood. You can't get better tone setters than this movie. 1990s. Let's talk about Body Snatchers from 1993 by Abel Ferrara. It isn't as good as the 70s version, but it isn't as campy as that one is either. You get to see the transformations in their entirety. It explains what happens to everyone with the most clarity out of all versions of this film. And the amount of sinister in it, I think, is the bleakest of all of the versions. And since this is my channel, I wanted to mention the one that gets talked about the least. It is so underrated. Please watch this, then watch the 70s version after. Disturbing Behavior is one of my biggest guilty pleasures of all time. I unironically love this fucking movie so much. It's similar to Body Snatchers and what's going on, but wears its 90s high school setting on its sleeve. Loud and proud. Katie Holmes has the fakest nose ring I maybe have ever seen in my life. And I know that the film was butchered and was originally much longer, explaining what is going on with more clarity, but I don't care. This movie is good, campy fun, and the opening scene in a car sets up the mood immediately. I love this fucking movie. Please watch it. It is so goddamn good. I want to briefly mention Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight, which I reviewed for its 30th anniversary in January. I also must mention the obvious stuff like Candyman, Scream, Interview with the Vampire, Misery, The Craft, and I Know What You Did Last Summer. Those are all good. I just don't have time to talk about all of them right now. Stay tuned this month for more full reviews. 2000s. This was the decade of horror remakes and torture porn. But setting all of that aside, people need to see stuff like The Descent right now. Also 28 Days Later, 30 Days of Night, and The Ring. But I want to talk about my two favorite horror films from that decade. Firstly is Grindhouse from 2007. It's a double feature honoring the drive-in films of the 70s. The first film of the two, Planet Terror, was directed by Robert Rodriguez, and is one of the best zombie films of that decade. And there were so damn many. It is so cheesy, but Rose McGowan makes it work. The whole cast is great, but she has a freaking gun attached to her leg and is blowing zombies all over the fucking place. And you just can't get more fun than that. The second film, Death Proof, was directed by Quentin Tarantino, and I think this is his most underappreciated work, and it's also one of my favorite films of his. It's a slasher where the killer drives a car, so the car is the weapon, not a knife. It has long, drawn-out scenes of dialogue, but it's Tarantino dialogue. How can you not be entertained? The ending also has maybe the best car chase I have ever seen in my life. There are trailers in between the two movies that are so goddamn funny, and almost all of them became feature-length films themselves. Hey Rob Zombie, please make Werewolf Women of the SS. I need to see this movie right freaking now. The other film I need to talk about is one of my favorite films from this decade, and that is Trick or Treat from 2007. This is another anthology horror like Creepshow, and the less I say, the better. Sam is one of my favorite horror icons ever. I have Sam toys all over my house. The best part of this movie is the part with Anna Paquin. I don't want to spoil it, it's just all worth your time. I love this movie so damn much. It is one of the purest, fun horror films I've ever seen. 2010s. Not talking about The Conjureverse here because I think it's overrated. Sorry. Let's instead talk about It Follows, a metaphor for safe sex. Such a basic premise, but one of my favorite horror films of the last 15 or so years. Micah Monroe is what keeps this film together. Her paranoia and natural bonding with her friends carry the entire film. There is a scene in a bedroom that is one of the most disturbing things I've seen in recent years. But it isn't exploitative. It's just a whoa, I just saw that kind of thing. Please see It Follows. It's a slow burn, but my god, it is incredible. Hush by Mike Flanagan needs to be mentioned here as well. A deaf woman being stalked at her home by a guy. Just like It Follows, a simple premise, but the tension grows and grows. This movie showed that Mike Flanagan is a modern voice of horror that can't be ignored, and now everyone knows that as well. Please see Hush if you haven't. Happy Death Day and its sequel must be mentioned here. They are comedies much more than horror, but the performance of the lead actress lets you have fun while you're watching basically a slasher that had sex with Groundhog Day. The second movie is peak ridiculous and may lose you with what is going on with all of its sci-fi stuff, but I think it's equally as fun if you approach it right. Finally, let me mention Jordan Peele's films Get Out and Us. They need no introduction, but I can't ignore them. And also Ari Aster's films Hereditary and Midsummer. These are the films that began the trend of elevated horror, which is fucking stupid. All horror is great. These ones just have strong themes to them and need your undivided attention when you watch them. Obviously, you need to see them. They are fucking great. I forgot in my 80s section to mention the great slasher Return to Horror High, which I reviewed last year. Check it out also, please. The only films from the 2020s I'm going to mention in this video is Ty West's X trilogy. The decade is only half over, so I don't think it'd be fair to talk about the decade as a whole yet. Pearl, the second film in the X trilogy, is maybe my favorite horror film of this decade. X is a great slasher with great characters you care about and don't want to see them die. Pearl is a Technicolor masterpiece that is like the Wizard of Oz took acid and lost its mind, and has an awards-worthy performance by Mia Goth. The third film, Maxine, was the first film I reviewed on this channel, and I think it's really good. Approach it like a hard-boiled noir film with horror elements, and I think you'll enjoy it. And there is a list of films to get horror newbies started. Yes, I know I left money out, but this is just a beginner's guide, so please don't yell at me that I didn't mention Graveyard Tramps or Hellraiser. Their time will come, just not today. Happy Horror-tober, everyone. Go watch some fucking horror movies, and please stay tuned to this channel all month as I review as many horror films as I can, including wild shit you've never heard of before. And that is my video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this, please like and subscribe. Here's links to my other videos. Follow me on social media if you like. And until next time, I am Ghost.